Hey there, this is Melissa in Indianapolis, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics.
Are you listening?
Welcome back to Two Broads Talking Politics. As usual, I am one of your co-hosts, Sophie, and I'm here with your other co-host, Kelly. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Sophie.
And joining us tonight is Kate Trudell. She is a Democratic candidate for the Tennessee House of Representatives from District 16. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here.
Thanks for being here. Could you just sort of tell us a little bit about who you are and how you came to be running for the Tennessee House of Representatives?
Sure. So I grew up in a small town, rural community in South Carolina, and my mother was an educator. My father ran a small family business that my grandfather started about 75 years ago. And I moved to Tennessee about 15 years ago and spent most of my career in social services and now run an organization and have for the past 4 years that serves victims of human trafficking. So we do training and awareness around the issue and fight for sort of statewide change and serve survivors of trafficking. And I have 2 small children, one of whom has special needs and is just now school age. And so as my husband and I were kind of trying to navigate the public school system for our oldest child, who was facing sort of an uphill battle with these additional needs that he has, we really had a big challenge, a big tough time ahead of us. And the first year dealing with that system did not go very well for our family. And so during that experience, I started kind of looking at who in our community and across our state have the capacity and ability to influence specifically our public education system. And at that time, I realized that the Tennessee House of Representative for our community and our district had been in office for almost 25 years and was just so happened to be on the education subcommittee. So I thought, how great. My representative for my district has the ability to influence this important issue for my family, and pretty quickly came to realize that, unfortunately, this individual was not protecting our public education system and putting that as a priority for our state. And so as I began to look further, I realized there was a lot of gaps between where I felt like our community's priorities should be and where our representation was. And as that began to unfold, and just talking with my husband and being so heavily involved in an industry that focuses so much on what can we do for others. And every day I wake up and think, what can I do today to make the world better for someone else? As I was thinking about my career and where I wanted our state to be, especially as it pertains to how our state is launching our children into adulthood, I realized things have to change. And I'm not content to leave that up to someone else. And if I know things have to change, then I have to be part of that. So earlier this year, when kind of faced with this decision, we realized that no one else was going to challenge this incumbent for the seat. And in fact, in almost 25 years, this individual has only been challenged twice in all 25 years for this race. And it just felt like the right time to do the right thing and to step up. So here I am.
You talked about education and that being important, and
Sure.
Obviously the human trafficking is something that's important to you. But what are the other kinds of issues that are really driving your campaign, but are also the things you're hearing from people in your district as you're knocking on doors?
Sure. I think the biggest issue that I'm hearing is access to quality health care, and certainly something that's really important to me and my family. Of course, we have a child who has special needs, so has required really specialized therapy each week, and that is difficult and a financial impact on our family. And I also have a pre-existing heart condition, and so that is also a fear that our family faces. We have sat down at the kitchen table and tried to balance between paying medical bills and putting food on the table. And that is a position that no one in our state should be in. And I've heard that conversation over and over again as I've been talking with voters and knocking on doors is it's not feasible for people in our state to be put in that position. And Tennessee is one of the few states that has elected not to expand Medicaid. So we're leaving a whole pot of federal dollars on the table that are going to other states and not providing the space for everyone in our state to have access to quality, affordable health care. And in fact, almost a little over 27,000 of those individuals are veterans in our state that our legislature has decided it's okay for them to fall through the gap and not have access to quality, affordable health care. And there's research that tells us almost 70% of individuals in Tennessee support expanding Medicaid, including our Republican governor. It's been one of his big issues that he's pushed for the past few years and just hasn't been able to gain traction and get the legislature to pass Insure Tennessee, which is the bill that he proposed to expand Medicaid. And I think that as the representative for District 16, I would certainly make that a priority to ensure that everyone in our state has access to the health care they need to thrive and to move forward in life. And I think the other piece in that is ensuring that our economy works for everyone in our state. Tennessee actually leads the nation in the number of individuals who rely on minimum wage jobs. And we know that there is a big gap between minimum wage and a living wage. So if you think about that, we have the most people in the nation who are functioning and trying to make ends meet well below a living wage. And we see the ripple effect of that in our economy. And so finding a way to increase the minimum wage to well above the national minimum wage standard, and our state doesn't actually have any minimum wage laws on the books. So addressing that, ensuring that we really invest in our infrastructure and our education, which helps platform individuals into finding well-paying jobs, having access to rural broadband, and those resources that they need to move ahead in life. So I think education and healthcare and an economy that works for each one of us in Tennessee are kind of the big things that I've heard across the myriad of individuals I've talked with over the past 4 or 5 months. And, I think a lot of people have asked me, I'm fiscally conservative. How do you expect to pay for all of this? And I think that's a great question. And I think ultimately the answer is we have the money. It's about how we prioritize the money that we spend. Right now in Tennessee, we spend per prisoner in our for-profit prison system to a student in our public education system. We outspend 3 to 1. We spend supporting prisoners in our for-profit prison system to per student in our public education system. And I think that speaks volumes to the priorities that we have in Tennessee. And so I recognize that keeping taxes where they are is an important issue for people in Tennessee. And certainly for our family, where every penny counts. I get it. People are fearful of raising taxes. I also know that taxes fund education, infrastructure, healthcare, and the systems that we need to move our state forward. But I think we, at the end of the day, have the money to pay for increases in teacher pay, expanding Medicaid, fully funding our public education system, expanding broadband, ensuring that individuals in our state have access to a living wage job. We have the money. It's just prioritizing how we spend it.
Can you tell us a little bit about District 16? Sort of like, is it a very rural district or urban? What are some of the sort of major cities that are there? Sort of give us a little bit of context for listeners who aren't in Tennessee.
Sure. So as many districts are these days, it's kind of an odd shape. So there's 2 main portions of District 16. One we call Fountain City, which is actually where my family and I live, and then another community called Powell. And Fountain City is more of an urban environment. It's much more walkable and kind of has a main thoroughfare and not far at all from where from where we live, much more urban. And Powell is very different. It's a lot more rural and has several huge neighborhoods, like with 500 to 900 homes. But outside of that is much more spread out and not as easily walkable, but certainly has that sort of local high school that everybody goes to, and even those who have long graduated and families whose children are grown and have grandchildren of their own still go to high school football games on Friday night and still are very involved in that hometown Powell community.
Tennessee ranks 50th in voter participation, which is not so good. What are you hearing this year? Do you get the sense that there are more people who are interested in voting this year? Do you think that that's going to make a difference in November as to what the voting and the elections look like?
Absolutely. I think some of the main things that we've heard this year have been, especially in my district, where I think I might have mentioned before that our current incumbent has run unopposed only twice as he had opposition in almost 25 years. And so for so long, what individuals in our districts have felt is they had nothing to vote for. So why turn up and vote if I have no choice? And so more than anything, even individuals who are pretty far removed from sort of the approach and policy that I have as a proud Democrat, I think I have heard, well, I believe in the democratic process, and I'm glad that we have choice this year, and I'm proud to be able to cast my vote, even if it might not be for you. I'm proud that there is a process where my voice matters, and I've certainly heard that from individuals who are on the Democratic side of things that have longed for someone to vote for over the past 25 years, specific to this district, and even across the states with our state Senate races and our congressional races and our a mayoral race that just passed locally. I think we have had great candidates, oftentimes on both sides of the ballot, and so I think that has been kind of revitalized the voting process for our community, and I think we've certainly seen an increase in voter turnout, and I know that's one of the biggest focuses for our campaign over the next few months is to just get people out to vote. Yes, of course, I would be honored if they would vote for me, and I hope that they do, but more than that, I want them to recognize the value of their vote. And I think even specifically in the state of Tennessee, there's another level of meaning with that, because Tennessee was the state that helped to ratify women's right to vote. We were the deciding vote that gave women the right to cast their ballot for the candidate of their choosing. And so especially it being the representative from East Tennessee, Knoxville, and my community has 2 statues dedicated to that. And I think that speaks volumes about the community in which we live, that voting and the right to vote should be valued and should be utilized. And so I think that's a narrative we've been hearing over and over again this election cycle, that I haven't been enthusiastic about voting in the past because there haven't been candidates I've been passionate about, or there hasn't even been a candidate that my party could vote for in my district. And I'm glad to see that all of that has changed. And I think the last election cycle, there were, I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think it was certainly in the minority, like 30% of races in Tennessee were contested. And now it's 95+% of races in Tennessee are contested for this election cycle. So I think that speaks volumes to the mobilization that's happening across our state.
One of the issues I know I've seen you mention on your Facebook page and comes up again today as we're sitting here, there was another mass shooting just earlier today, is gun violence. And legislation around guns. I'm sure that's a tricky issue in a place like Tennessee. What are you hearing from people as you talk to them? What sorts of things, if any, are people saying about gun violence and the need for greater legislation around guns?